Even though the stock was down almost 30 points from its peak, it was still one of the S&P 500's performing stocks for the year. What transpired to make this more buoyant stock roar once again? What about this? The company's Blackwell supercomputer chip, which has been the subject of conjecture regarding poor execution, lost opportunities, and less realistically, doubts about the true demand for AI hardware and a market rife with fakes, was clarified by CEO Jensen Huang. There are more than enough rumors about Nvidia. In his fireside talk with David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, during the company's Communicopia Plus Tech conference, Jensen made the decision to first make amends. We aren't telling the story correctly. According to the man I nicknamed Da Vinci because he is a contemporary Renaissance man, in addition to being at the forefront of the AI, artificial intelligence movement, Nvidia also controls the accelerated computing market, where its GPUs will eventually replace nearly all of the older, slower CPUs. Two main ideas. Then he made a statement that sent the stock skyrocketing for days. Nvidia's bears and ignorant critics had been claiming that the company's groundbreaking Blackwell chip was too difficult to produce and might not be able to ship in large quantities by 2024. False. We are ramping Blackwell, and it's in full production, Jensen stated. The demand is so high that everyone wants to be the first, the most, and so the intensity is truly pretty exceptional. We will ship in Q4 and begin scaling in Q4 into next year. Talk about comforting phrases. And what do you know? These statements were much needed in the bull market for AI semiconductors. The next thing you know, Nvidia's price is soaring, and so are the stocks of other travelers like Broadcom, which I just highlighted after it had a quarter that was severely criticized and completely destroyed. Did you realize that Broadcom traded higher today than it was before the aforementioned quarter? The one that seemed to be disliked but is now turning into a gorgeous but irate swan, which I told you was good anyhow? Ever notice how furious swans can get? We live in a very sentimental market, you see. It is dangerous to draw any conclusions from the actions of stocks like Nvidia, Broadcom, or even JP Morgan, aside from the visceral positive action in the alternative energy stocks, which may be related to Vice President Harris's position on carbon emissions during last night's debate. The only conclusion that can be made is that many companies that are doing okay will do much better when the Fed starts cutting rates. It's true that stocks perform better when interest rates are lowered. In conclusion, I would recommend to keep things simple. Rate cuts are good, minor rate cuts are great since they do not allow for fear and project confidence, which will lead to many more rate decreases later. I'd regretfully come to the conclusion that individuals who were disappointed by the prospect of only one 25 basis point rate drop next week are completely uninformed. Let's visit Eric in Massachusetts, shall we? Let me reiterate, Eric. By the next 4 or 5 years, there will be about $100 billion available for everyone who wants to participate in that game. This company is simply getting bigger and bigger. No slowdown or change is in the works. Nvidia receives 40% of that. Indeed, but Nvidia is acting as though it's finished, as though it's kaput, daemon, and cut, and I believe that's incorrect. And the chart is largely to blame. A large portion of it is that they will soon have zero dark 30 options, the zero options. Until it retests the $90 level where it traded on Yen Car Day, yes, it can't go anywhere, is what I find most disgusting about this. According to leading market historian Larry Williams, it won't move until October. However, be advised that Nvidia receives the large check, with a smaller portion going to Johnson Controls, Eaton, and Vertiv. However, the stock is unaffected. However, once more, just a small number of businesses will spend the $100 billion he was referring to. I take it that it's Alphabet, Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta? That's all. In other words, I believe it is entirely reasonable to assume that there may be 4 corporations involved in this industry. Network TV, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Apple isn't. I do indeed. That is not being spent by Apple. Here, they are the freeloaders. The great free rider is what they are. Who knows if they're finished at all? What would happen if they had to deal with one of these businesses again? Gemini and Google, by the way, they didn't bring home the bacon. No. Only the $20/month ChatGPT was available when I used them. All of the generative AI and large language are being tested by Gemini. When they make a mistake, they apologize profusely. It's amazing. Hear me out. Their absence is a positive thing. I Let's go take a rest. Indeed, is our agent comfortable with it? We do have contracts. That's about all. I told you that JGI robot, whatever Jensen had me do, would replace us. I even cheered for the Eagles. Indeed, you claim that there isn't an AI bubble, least not in comparison to the previous significant tech bubble. 52 times anticipated earnings and 2024 times net margin. 16% and 28% presently are some of the comparisons you made. At what point do you say, all right for now, when do they become cheap for you? Perhaps start at the beginning and establish a place for people who are not in them. Yes, I believe that if you want to own businesses in the long run, you should have a list of them. As a result, Nvidia is 25% lower than its 52-week peak. To put that valuation in perspective, Charles, it is currently trading at a forward PE that is more than 36 times. They produce the most cutting-edge chips and are the largest and greatest chip manufacturer in the world. They produce burritos and are valued lower than Chipotle. Okay, so I'm happy you mentioned Nvidia because, of course, it's in the epicenter. It is the storm's eye. The pace is set by Nvidia. The problem is that several well-known billionaire investors have recently sold. 9 million shares were sold by Ken Griffin. 3 million shares were sold by David Tepper. 1.5 million shares were sold by Duncan Miller. These are the biggest, sharpest people on the planet, sort of on Wall Street, Steve Cohen. According to the story, Nvidia is currently the foolish money play. To that, how would you respond? It would be interesting to know what proportion of their portfolios were invested in Nvidia, in my opinion. Are they merely taking a portion of the income and trimming others? The Oracle narrative and the company's recent recovery intrigue me greatly. Software has struggled, and you've had the hyperscalers and Nvidia's picks and shovels. This collaboration with AWS is what we've seen with Oracle's report last night and the subsequent rebound. They are implying that the customer does not care who they select as a hyperscaler. They can keep the Oracle software and platform running in the background. You've witnessed a very robust revenue pipeline. That, in my opinion, is just more proof that the AI narrative is still in its early to mid-stage stages. To be honest with you, I think it's fantastic that it's expanding beyond picks and shovels. And hopefully I do have Oracle subscribers. In any case, my next guest advises choosing the obvious option. He is still optimistic about Nvidia, a company he believes has enormous potential. John Porter, the Chief Investment Officer at Newton Investment Management, is now joining us. It's a chip firm and a CLE, and they go through cycles, John. The debate, I believe, boils down to whether or not you believe Nvidia will face one of the several setbacks the sector frequently encounters. Chris Croissant made the case the other day that it could sort of avoid some of those historical cyclical issues if it could. The industry has experienced what? Yes, Kelly, you raise a valid point, and there are undoubtedly some cyclical challenges to consider. I mean, there are a lot of cyclical headwinds in the semiconductor industry right now if you look outside of AI. However, there are instances when it's better to take a step back and look at the big picture. As investors, we frequently overcomplicate things when, in fact, we should only concentrate on the clear-cut, basic narrative. I examine the state of AI in the case of Nvidia. You pay attention to what Oracle and many others had to say last night. I firmly believe that artificial intelligence is a game-changing technology. Indeed, there are inquiries concerning the use cases that will require some time to